Mandami Bante and Sialis. Good morning, everyone, and good evening to our Dhamma friends in the Western Hemisphere. Welcome to Lesson 28, Chapter 3 on Compendium of Functions. My name is Cynthia, the meeting co-host, and will be helping Bante and everyone in today's session. May we invite Bante to start the teaching, please? Sādhu, Sādhu, Sādhu.
Good morning, everyone. Let's start our today's Abhidhamma study. Paying homage to the Buddha, reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Today's lesson, we are going to study about the Compendium of Function. It's one of the compendiums of Chapter 3. So in the Chapter 3, as you know, they are mentioned 6 compendiums. 6 compendium. In the lesson 27, we already finished 2 compendiums or two way of analyze. That is the compendiums of feeling and compendiums of root. Now the third one, the compendiums of function, in Pali it is called the Kicca Sangaha. So Kicca Sangaha. So today we are going to study about the Kicca Sangaha. In the Kicca Sangaha, the compendium of function, the 89 types of consciousness are classified by way of different function. Because when the consciousness arises in mental process, each one of them, whenever they arise, they all perform, and they perform the respective function. So none of the consciousness that do not perform any function and just arise and pass away. Here, whenever they arise, they perform the respective function. So we can analyze the consciousness by way of function 2. And when they arise, they accompany by any types of feeling. That's why we can analyze consciousness by way of feeling. In the same way, all types of consciousness perform the respective function, their own function, whenever they arise. That is why we can analyze the consciousness by way of function. So the function is what? So function is something the consciousness perform. So in the Cittasika, you may remember, every Cittasika have their own function, different function, different from each other. So for the characteristic also different. All the mental factors, each of them have their own characteristic. But here for the consciousness, every type of consciousness have the same characteristic. Only one characteristic of knowing the object. Knowing the object. But the consciousness depends on the types. They have the different function. So although they are the same in the characteristic, lakkhana, they are different in function. That is why we can differentiate the consciousness according to their function. Then in this compendium of function, Kicca Sangaha, we will study about the 14 function and 10 stages. 14 function. So function or 89 consciousness according to the classification of function. They perform only 14 function. Then 10 stage here. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi translate the Thana, the word Thana, as stages, as stage. What we can understand, Thana is place or location, or not physical location. It is the location in the mental process. So that is the place in the mental process stage. So what is the relationship of Gecha and stage Thana? The stage Thana is where the consciousness performs its function. That is called Thana. So function is something the consciousness performs when they arise. And we can say the stage of Thana is where the consciousness performs its function. According to the place to perform the function, there are 10 stages or 10 Thana. So we will study about the 14 Gecha and 10 stage, 10 function, 10 stages or 10 Thana in this lesson. So the consciousness, the classification by way of consciousness. So first we will count what are the function and what are the stages. Then we will classify the function according to the consciousness. So which type of consciousness perform which function we will study, and the classification by numbers of function, So then we will take the consciousness and we will group the consciousness according to the function, the number of functions that they perform. So some consciousness perform 5 functions, some 4 functions, like this. So according to the number of functions that they perform, we will make the group and identify the consciousness. So this is the 2-way of classification in the Compendium of Function. So before we continue our study in the Compendium of Function, Gecha Sangaha, we need to know the 2 types of consciousness. One is Viti Chitta. So that is the consciousness within the cognitive process. Consciousness arises within the cognitive process. So as you know, the cognitive process is knowing the specific object. So it may be the visual form, or sometimes it may be sound or smell, or sometimes it may be the taking something as the specific object. That is called the cognitive process. So active process, we can say that. Then the cognitive process can be divided into 2. Sorry. Paido cognitive process, Panchadwara Viti, and Mind-o cognitive process, Manodwara Viti. So we already repeat again and again in this process of our study about the cognitive process. Today also, we will review again so that we could absorb the information as much as we can. Then another types of consciousness is Vitimutta. So according to the process, so only 2 types. Viti Chitta, the cognitive process, and Vitimutta Chitta, that is called the process free. So Mutta is free. So the cognitive process, the consciousness outside the cognitive process is called the Vitimutta Chitta. So Viti and Vitimutta, cognitive process and the outside the cognitive process. So we need to know these 2 types of consciousness. the process according to the process. And before we continue, so let's continue about the classification or the enumeration of the function. So here in the first column, it named the function from 1 to the 14. So Patisandi, rebirth linking, Bhavanga, life continuum, and Avajana at button. So we already know the name. So most of them are the name from the rootless consciousness, because the rootless consciousness contain the multiple functions of consciousness. Then Avajana is adverting, and the from 4 to 8, Dasana Kija seeing, Savana Kija hearing, Kayana Kija smiling, Sayana Kija tasting, then Fusana Kija touching. So these are 4 functions related to the sense under the faculty, sense faculties, or eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body. Then Sampadichana receiving. So this also we have found in the Ahitukachita rootless consciousness. And the Santirana Kicha investigating or investigating consciousness. Investigating is a function. Consciousness investigate the objects. Then Ottabana Kicha determining. So this Kicha determining, but there's no specific want to say that a separate consciousness of determining. As you know, in the mental process, we already observed that is the Ottabana, the moment of Ottabanas in the 5-door mental process is performed by the mind-dot averting consciousness. We already explained that. And also in this lesson, we were repeating, seeing the mental process again. Then 12, Javana Kicha, run swiftly, Javana. So whenever Bhikkhu Bodhi and also whenever Sarah Usilananda suggested, not easy to find the proper word to translate the word Javana. So it is better to use as in Pali, so as the name of the Pali, Javana. So we can understand that run swiftly. Then 13th function is Tararamana Kicha, that is registration. But also this type of function also not easy to understand. Just in the English translation, it is registration. But I don't know how relates the action of registration and the performance of the consciousness in their 13th function. So anyhow, we can study the nature of consciousness and then we can name. Then the last one is Chuti Kicha, is death. So starting from the rebirth linking and with the Chuti Kicha, death. So all 14 functions are counted in the Abhidhamma Sangaha. Here also, the translation of rebirth linking. So Venerable Sarah Usilananda pointed out the linking. So when something perform the linking, so the thing to link is in the middle of two things, or that is. But here in this case, the rebirth linking Patisandi is in this life. So Patisandi is the past moment of any life. That's why it is not similar to the linking, but anyway, the usage come in that way. So he pointed out to consider about it. And another classification, the 10 stages or 10 places, Tana. So what is the difference between the function and Thana stages is only in case of Panchavinyana Thana. So Panchavinyana Thana cover the 5 function. So that is the only place where the consciousness perform the 5 function. That is why 5 function instead of 5 function to 5 stages, it becomes 5 function to 1 stages of Pancha Vinyana Thanas. The other stages, 9 stages come in the name of the function, same as the name of the function. So Pradisandhi Kicha and Pradisandhi Thana. Okay, so let's see the connection of the function and the stages where the consciousness performs the function. So the function is the rebirth linking consciousness. So some types of consciousness, if we say the exile, so that is any of the 19 consciousness, when they arise, they can perform at the beginning of the life, the rebirth linking function. Then where they perform is the Pradisandhi Thana. So the stage of rebirth linking, at the stage of rebirth linking, for identifying exactly what is Pradisandhi Thana, we need to learn more about the mental process. So mental process, sometimes, the Pradisandhi Thana is between the Chutti, death of the previous life, the former life, and it is at the beginning of the present life. After that, it is followed by the Bhavanga, the life continuum. So we can say Pradisandhi Thana. What is Pradisandhi Thana? Is between death and first life continuum, first Bhavanga. So this is introduction how we can identify the Thana. But in this lesson, we will not identify all the Thanas, all the stages, but just trying to learn that there are 10 stages or 10 Thana where the consciousness perform 14 functions. Most of them are the same as the name of the function. The only difference is from the 4 to 8, the 5 function perform the same place of the Panchavinyana Thana. So it becomes the 14 function becomes the 10 stages. So the others also can be understood in this way. Then, so receiving function like this, receiving function and receiving the stages, receiving stage, and Santirana investigating. So all are the same except the Panchavinyana Thana, because Pancha is 5, Vinyana is consciousness. So 5 types of consciousness perform different function in the similar place. So the similar place we will find out in the mental process in this slide where we can see the mental process. So now in this slide, there are 14 functions and 10 stages. So here, 1 is Pradisandhi Kicha, 2nd is the Bhavanga Kicha, life continuum, and the last one, Chutti Kicha. So these 3, we already said that these 3 are out of the cognitive process. So Pradisandhi, what is Pradisandhi? So let's see, in the slide of the mental process. So Pradisandhi is rebirth. So rebirth linking consciousness, Pradisandhi. That is the beginning of any life. So suppose we are talking about the present life. So before the rebirth linking consciousness, there must be death. Must be death in any life. And it is follow the rebirth linking consciousness, Patisandhi Chitta, is followed by the Bhavanga. So, okay, the place where the consciousness can perform the rebirth linking function, the function of rebirth linking, Patisandhi Chitta, is between death of the past life and the first Bhavanga, first life continuum. That's why we can understand this is Patisandhi Thana. So the consciousness can perform Patisandhi function, Patisandhi Kicca, the function of rebirth linking in this place of mentalities, mental process. This is how the consciousness perform the Patisandhi Kicca and where. Then Bhavanga. So Bhavanga is between their two cognitive processes. The Bhavanga arises to be as a part of the life. So Bhavanga, Bhava and Anga. So but as a part or as a indispensable condition of the life. So Bhavanga runs. Then here Bhavanga, another Bhavanga, you see the Bhavanga in this way. So Bhavangas are arising in this way. So Patisandhi and Bhavanga. So different places. Bhavanga has different places. So it is quite large in the number according to the mental process. So when the mental process ends with the types of consciousness, the end of the mental process and the beginning of the another mental process, the Bhavanga, like this. So this classification or this specification of the Bhavanga Thana is not quite easy. So we will learn that in the honorable stages, not in the beginner level, because it needs a different, it needs to explain different types of mental process. So without the different types of mental process, it is not easy to catch up the Bhavanga Thana. But we can understand that Bhavanga Thana, Bhavanga consciousness, the consciousness, when they perform the function of life continuum, and they perform the place that is called Bhavanga Thana. Then at the end of the life, the death. So the death, the place of death is the end of the life. Okay, that is easy way to note the stage of death. Then after that, the rebirth linking consciousness. So in this way, the consciousness performing respective function whenever they arise. So during the life, different types of consciousness arise and perform different function. So let's see. In this mental process, we already repeat again and again the process. So Bhavanga. So as a part of the Bhavanga to link or to link formal mentalities and the following mentality. So to link the life, the Bhavanga is running. So Bhavanga in this way. Then, so here P, past Bhavanga, also the same Bhavanga and vibrational Bhavanga. So when the object come into the venue of the sense faculty, so coming together like a touching, due to that causes the Bhavanga becomes the vibrate, become vibrational Bhavanga. But still it is the, according to the function, it is Bhavanga. And arrest Bhavanga still also, it is a function of Bhavanga. The consciousness is performing the function of Bhavanga. Then after the arrest Bhavanga, so no more Bhavanga, due to the combination of the coming together of the consciousness and sense faculty, the 5-dot abutment arise. So this is the process how the seeing consciousness arise. So we can say the I consciousness now. So five door abiding, then I consciousness arise. Then receiving consciousness and investigating consciousness, determining consciousness, jhana and registration. Then again, bhavanga. So this is how we see the visible object. At that moment, or in the process of our mentality, so what happened? So from the beginning to the A, arrest bhavanga, all types of consciousness are bhavanga, and they perform the function of bhavanga. Then starting from the F, so here, five door evident, it changes the function. So the consciousness, types of consciousness is the five door abiding consciousness. It is in the rootless consciousness, one of the rootless consciousness. So five door abiding consciousness arise, then perform the advertent function. So if you see among the function, so it is just say not five door abiding, it just say the awajana kicca. So that is the third one, awajana kicca, advertent function. And because this is in the mental process related to the five doors. So if it is the mental process related to the mind door, the consciousness will change. So mind door aversion, you will see. So both of them perform the similar function of aversion. That is why they are named as the aversion, just different the doors. So five door aversion and mind door aversion. Two consciousness in the rootless consciousness are named as the awajana. So now we understand where they arise. So where they arise mean they arrest bhavanga and any of that is the Dvipancha Vinyana, the two set of 5-4 consciousness. There it arises and perform the function of advertent. That's why they are named as the advertent consciousness. Then the I consciousness. So we know there are two I consciousness among the 89, or they are included in the rootless consciousness and resultants produced by the karma. That the I consciousness, when the I consciousness arise, it doesn't matter whether it is produced by the wholesome or unwholesome. They perform the same function of seeing. So here, I consciousness perform seeing, and after it arises after 5 dot abiding. So the place where the I consciousness perform the seeing function is between 5 dot abiding consciousness and receiving consciousness. So between these two consciousness, and that's the place that is the Pancha Vinyana Thana. It is not the place where the I consciousness perform the function of seeing. So the other types of consciousness, the ear consciousness perform the function of hearing, also come in the same place between 5 dot abiding and receiving. So that is the place of Pancha Vinyana Thana. And there, the Dvipancha Vinyana consciousness perform their respective function of seeing, hearing, etc. Then another types of consciousness arise, receiving. After seeing or hearing or like this, then receive the object. It receives the 5 different objects. That's why that is called the receiving consciousness. So any of the receiving consciousness, there are 2 types of receiving consciousness in the rootless consciousness, you may remember. Then any of this receiving consciousness arise and perform the function of receiving. Then investigating consciousness, there are 3 investigating consciousness, any of them arise after receiving and determining. At that time, the investigating consciousness arise and perform the function of investigating. Then determinant. So Ottapana Kicca, that is 11. So that determinant. So when at that moment, so determining function is performed by the mind-abiding consciousness. So in this way, we understand through the mental process, we understand the function and the stages clearly. That is why understanding the mental process is very useful. In the next chapter, which is Sangaha, we will study to cover all types of mental process so that we could understand our life properly. Then Javana. So here Javana can be very unwholesome, wholesome, fruition or functional. So this is the count of the 55 Javana. We will talk about this. So about the Javana, in this case, just to review the process of mentality to connect with the function and the stages. So the function, when they arise, they perform the function and at the stage. So Javana 7 times. So 5 Javana all identical. Then registration. After that, Bhavanga, now we know the place of the consciousness to perform their function where. So although the consciousness is one kind according to the characteristic and according to the function and according to the accompanying mental factors, they are classified into 89 and enlarged in 121. So this is the functions performed in the process of seeing, because here we emphasize the seeing. Then another process also here, instead of the moment seeing, we change here ear consciousness to hear the sound. So at that moment, yeah, between the 5 door averting and receiving, the ear consciousness perform the function of hearing. And if it is the nose consciousness, is perform the function of smelling. And if it is the tongue consciousness, is perform the function of tasting. And if it is the body consciousness, it perform the function of touching. So this place is Pancha Vijnana Thana, and the different consciousness perform their respective function in that place. And so let's change the Javana. So unwholesome Javana can be different types, unwholesome to wholesome. So sometimes if we don't have the proper attitude, so Yoniso Manasikara, wise reflection, so at that moment, unwholesome consciousness arises. Our mind turns to the side of the unwholesome. Then if we can keep the Yoniso Manasikara, the wholesome Javana arise in this way. That's for the Putujana and trainee. Then for the Arahat, the Javana movement changed to the functional consciousness. This is the only difference. Then, okay, let's continue to the mind-door mental process. So for the mind-door mental process, the function are lesser than the 5-door mental process. So Bhavanga function, and so all of Bhavanga starting from the mind-door averting. So mind-door averting Javana. Sometimes it is followed by the registration. Sometimes it is not followed. So the changes avajana, adverting, because the door is changing, the name of the consciousness also changed, but the function is the same. After arrest, Bhavanga, mind-door averting, arise and perform the function of adverting to the objects. This is the mind-door averting, and the Javana all the same. So the only difference is instead of 5-door averting, here, mind or abiding consciousness of the rootless consciousness perform the function of abiding in this case. Okay, so let's classify the 14 function according to the process and process free. So as we have said, there are two types of consciousness, process free and cognitive process. So here, three function, Pratisandhikija, Bhavangakija, and Chutikija. So three functions are related to the process free because they are not included in any cognitive process. Then here, for the two types of mental process, the cognitive process here, Dasanakija, Savanakija, Gayanakija, Sayanakija, Pusanakija, three, these four functions of the sense faculty. And Samplichana, they are also related to them, related to the seeing, etc. Then Santirana, Vatavana, they only arise the 5-door cognitive process during the 5-door cognitive process. And Avijjanakija, Javanakija, Dharamnakija can be both. So there's no function which is performed only in the mind-door process, because even the abiding consciousness, mind-door abiding. So according to the function, so function, we can say they are considered in both sides of 5-door and mind-door. So 5-door avoidance performed in the 5-door mental process, and mind-door avoidance performed in the mind-door mental process. But the similarity of the avoidance function, so they are considered in both sides. That's why the avoidance, jhana, and registration can be found in both 5-door and mind-door cognitive process. So this is the classification of the function according to the mental process. Then, okay, so here the passage in the Abhidhamma Sangaha, you can see, you can read in the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma there. So three functions, so performed by the same types. The three functions of rebirth, linking, life continuum, and death are performed by the same types of consciousness in any life, in any particular life. So the birth at the moment of the beginning of the life, the consciousness arises, that is recognized as the rebirth linking. But at the end of the life, that particular life, the same types of rebirth linking consciousness arise, the same type arise, but it is recognized as the death, Chutiki. So because the function is different, although the types of the consciousness is the same, they get the different function. They get the different names according to their function. So rebirth, linking, consciousness, and death. And during the lifetime, so to be the essential part of the life, that the same types of rebirth, linking, consciousness arise during the life. It is just called the life continuum, Bhavanga. So although the names are different, the kind of consciousness is the same. This is what we need to keep this important information in our mind. Although they perform the different function, they are same in the kinds, in particular life. Then, so let's talk about the Pratisandhikija. So what is the Pratisandhikija? So Pratisandhi, rebirth linking. Then we have to compare with the Pratisandhikita. So Pratisandhikija, Kija is function. So Pratisandhikita is the consciousness that performs the function of rebirth linking. So rebirth linking is the function, and the consciousness, any consciousness perform, that function is called the Pratisandhikita. then it occurs only once in any individual is existent. So it never repeats as a function of Pradisandhi. Although it arises, the same types arise, it can be the function in the function of life continuum or death, but never perform again Pradisandhi in the same life. So only at the moment of rebirth, of conception. So rebirth here refers to the conception at the very first moment of the life. Then Judikicha, death. And also Judicita, so the first one and the 14th, the last one. Also the moment, the first moment and the last moment. So the same types of consciousness arise to perform the Judicita, the function of death at the last moment of the life. This is called the Judicita. So Judikicha and Judicita. Then during the life, so is life continuum. The function of life continuum is performed by the same types of consciousness. So it's mostly evident during the deep dreamless sleep. So if you sleep without any dream and sound sleep, at the time, the bhavanga is arising. So that same types of consciousness with the rebirth linking consciousness arising in your mental process, performing the function of life continuum at that moment of you have sound sleep. But it also occurs during waking time. So when you are awaken, at that moment between the active process, but active process means there is former seeing process and the following seeing process, or the seeing process and hearing process. Between these two processes, the bhavanga arise. That is why whenever we study about the mental process, you may recognize that there's at the beginning we show the bhavanga, and at the end of the mental process we show the bhavanga. That is the bhavanga arise during the waking times. And we can say the bhavanga, the types of consciousness, these types of consciousness arise to perform the function of life continuum whenever there's no active cognitive process is taking place, not arising. Then we see there is passive flaw, something like this. Then this is the 3 process-free function. So Pradisandhi, the last moment Chuti, and during the lifetime bhavanga. Then, so let's see more about the bhavanga function. So bhavanga is composed of bhava and anga. Bhava is existence and anga is fetters. So the fetters of existence, we can say the fetters of existence is called bhavanga. It is indispensable condition necessary to continue the life. So if bhavanga does not arise, the consciousness will be not in the proper order and cannot be able to continue. That's why, according to the nature of the consciousness called the citta niyama, the bhavanga, as the same types of consciousness with the rebirth linking consciousness arise again to perform the bhavanga function. So from the conception to death, so it runs. If there is the cognitive process is stopped, when the cognitive process arises is stopped, then just after the cognitive process finished, it arises again. So this is how the bhavanga perform the function of life continuum during the lifetime. Then let's talk about the javana. So javana is running swiftly. So the types of consciousness, some 15 types. There are 55 types of consciousness. When they arise, they perform the function of jhana. It's running swiftly by their want to say their momentums or something else. It is translated, but we can see this moment. In this moment, when any of the 55 consciousness arise, they experience the full experience of the object. So full experience of the object. At the moment of the jhana, the consciousness can experience fully the taste of the object and running swiftly. That is why this is called the bhavanga. So normally the jhana happen 7 times. It is in the Kamavachara jhana. So it normally happen in 7 times, but near that moment is 5 times, like this. So depends on the types of the jhana and depends on the types of the place where they arise and to perform something, any function. So that can be different. The times can be different, but generally it happens 7 times. So all identical in kind. So all are the same types. That's why when we show the jhana, just show the jhana, does not make any difference in kind. So when the unwholesome jhana first moment arises, the other 6 moments also same as the former one, they become unwholesome. So they cannot be different in the kinds. Then this moment of jhana is the most important from the ethical standpoint. So wholesome or unwholesome, we can identify only this moment. From the previous moment also no difference. And then after that, the dharamana and bhavanga also no different in the ethical standpoint. From the ethical standpoint, whether it is wholesome or unwholesome, moral or immoral, you can identify in this moment of jhana. Then what about the dharamana? So 2 moments of consciousness follow jhana. They are called the registration. So having that object, here that object refers to the object of the jhana, the object of the jhana. So registration is just the following consciousness is compared to the water follow to the boat. So when the boat is moving, the water is following. In the same way, in the process of mentality, due to the jhana is running swiftly. So the mentalities two times is followed. So here is occurred 2 times immediately after jhana. Then, so in another chapter of Abhidhamma English, it mentioned that about the dhararamana. So dhararamana, to sometimes the mental process consists of the dhararamana, sometimes it does not contain the dhararamana. So what made the difference? So dhararamana must be to arise the 2 moments of dhararamana, there must be some condition. So here, only at the end of sense-pure jhana. So if there is sense-pure jhana, it is possible to arise the dhararamana, but still needs the other condition, other situation. So if there is no sense-pure jhana arise, dhararamana also will not arise. Then only to the sense-pure beings. So here, the being in the sense-pure plane or existence, only in their minds, only in the mind of the beings in the sense-pure realms, the dhararamana can arise. It means at the mental process of Brahma, they are rupavachara or arupavachara. So the dhararamana cannot arise. That's why sense-pure beings only to the sense-pure being, and only when sense-pure phenomenal becomes object. So sense-pure object is kama vachara aramana, kama aramana. So when we take the self-flame consciousness as the object, at that moment the Dhararamana cannot arise because the object is absent, no sense-sphere phenomena. Then sometimes the Nibbana is an object of the mind. At that moment also, the Dhararamana cannot arise. So this is the condition to arise the Dhararamana. Otherwise, they cannot arise. So we skip after the Javana, the Bhavanga arise instead of Dhararamana. And also, even when the sense-sphere phenomena is taken as the object by the process of the sense-sphere beings, and sense-sphere Javana arise. So if the Aramana, the object, is not prominent, the Dhararamana cannot, because it is the lifespan of the mental process. So that the time duration of the mental process is short. Then not clear. So not prominent and not clear also cannot arise the Dhararamana. This is some information about the Dhararamana. So we will according to the procedure of the Abhidhamma Sangha, it will mention by parts. Here mention about some information and then later some. So we need to be patient. Sometimes if we don't fully understand, so at the end of the 9th chapter, so I think you understand all the types of consciousness fully. Otherwise, we need more information in this way. And Dhararamana, okay. So this slide is already studied. So this is the process-free consciousness. The consciousness perform the function related to the process-free. So Vitimutta. So 19 types of consciousness perform the function of rebirth, linking, life continuum, and death. So we can count there. You can see the comprehensive manual of Abhidhamma. So according to the classification, starting from two types of rootless rebirth linking consciousness. If we talk about the rebirth linking consciousness, it included the life continuum and also the death. So same, because they have the same types. And rootless, in the rootless group, only 2. So investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity. Then sense-sphere beautiful, altogether 10 sense-sphere rebirth. Sense-sphere consciousness perform the rebirth, and also life continuum Bhavanga and Chuti, same. Then, so 5 material sphere consciousness at the 5 material sphere existent, and immaterial sphere resort and perform. So 9 sublime rebirth. So altogether 19 rebirth linking consciousness. It means there among the 89, the 19 consciousness can perform the 3 function of rebirth linking, life continuum, and death according to the lives, according to the karma produce them, which produce them. Okay, this is the slide from the lesson 13. So we can recognize 3 functions related to the Vitimutta, not in the cognitive process. Then, so this classification also already studied according to the individual. So I'm just trying to cover in this lesson. So here, classification of individual. So individual types, the ordinary person. So ordinary person also can be different. The two person are rootless individual, and the one person is double-rooted individual, and the other person is triple-rooted individual. In this way, the 4 Putujana or wildlings ordinary person are 4 kinds. And also the other 7 kinds or 7 trainees. So after the attainment of the mega and phala in any stage, is become the trainee before the attainment of the arhata phala. So 8% of noble person, 8 noble person, including the triple rooted, they all are 9 triple-rooted individual. So they have the different rebirth linking consciousness. I mean, among the 19 consciousness which can perform the rebirth linking function, they arise due to the person. And in the other way, we can say that we can recognize the person due to their rebirth linking consciousness. So, two rootless person, and the sense sphere resultant, so accompanied by two roots, so without the amoha hetu or knowledge. These four, and with the root, it's become the three roots. With the root of the amoha or the wisdom, that is three roots, including the sublime rebirth linking consciousness 9. So altogether 13 tihetuka rebirth linking consciousness. Only 4 drihetuka double rooted rebirth linking consciousness, and ahetuka 2. In this way, we can classify the four rebirth linking consciousness into different types according to the individual they arise. Okay, so let's classify the 14 function according to the consciousness which perform this function. So we already know the first and second. So the third one is the adverting. So here, I missed the third one, adverting consciousness, adverting kicca. So that is the adverting conscious kicca is performed by the two adverting consciousness of the mind dot adverting and pi dot adverting. So here, starting from the 4 to 8, 5 function performed by the Vipancha Vijnana consciousness, two set of 5 sense consciousness among the rootless consciousness. So you can understand the seeing function is performed by the eye consciousness, etc. Then Samprichana Kicca receiving function is performed by the two receiving consciousness. And Santirana Kicca, the investigating function is performed by the 3 investigating consciousness. So, because there's one more investigating consciousness accompanied by join, that's why it becomes 3. And Vattabhana Kicca is performed by the mind dot abiding consciousness in the 5 dot mental process. So, if you understand the slide where I mentioned about the mental process, these are not difficult. So identifying the consciousness with their respective function. Then the complicated thing come in the jhana. So because in the Abhidhamma Sangha, it mentioned that 12 unwholesome and 21 wholesome, 4 supramundane fruition. So fruition, supramundane fruition, only 4, and 18 functional citta. So they are the jhana, 55 jhana. But here, this classification comes according to their kinds. So unwholesome, wholesome, functional, fruition, and functional. So you can recognize the unwholesome, wholesome, and functional, except the 2 functional, because there are 20 functional, except the mind dot abiding and 5 dot abiding. They already recognized by their function of abiding. So these 2 are not included in this functional enumeration. So only 18 functional. And from the fruition side, only supramundane fruition, not other sense sphere fruition and sense sphere resultant and sublime resultant cannot perform the function of jhana. Only the supramundane fruition can perform the function of jhana. So this is the classification according to the kind. But in order to understand clearly, we need to classify according to what we had studied in the order of Abhidhamma Sanghas, the consciousness. So here, starting from the unwholesome 12, and then among the 18 rootless consciousness, the only one consciousness of smile producing consciousness can perform the function of jhana. So 12 unwholesome, 1 from the 18. And the sense sphere, beautiful sense sphere, 2 groups of wholesome and functional. So in this way, there are 29 chitta that can perform jhana function among the 54 sense sphere consciousness. And then the sublime consciousness, the wholesome and functional. So sublime consciousness is the combination of 2 groups, 5 material sphere and immaterial sphere. So altogether, wholesome 9 and functional 9. Then, so although the mega chitta is not mentioned here, the supramundane fruition refers to the phala chitta, supramundane fruition. But in the 21 wholesome chitta, so according to the kind, the mega chitta is wholesome. That is why in the 21 wholesome chitta, mega is included. So all supramundane consciousness can perform the function of jhana. So if we count the absorption jhana, so this is called the apana jhana, so 26. So 29 sense sphere and 26 absorption, altogether 55. Jhana, they perform the jhana function. Then the dhararamana kicca, the registration, is performed by the 11 types of consciousness. So great resultant here, there's no great resultant here in this case in jhana, but it performs the dhararamana kicca and investigating consciousness, 3 altogether. 11 consciousness can perform the dhararamana kicca, the function of registration, when they arise at the end of the jhana. Okay, so this is how we can identify the function with the consciousness, with the types of the consciousness. Then another part of classification by the number of functions. So we need to identify the consciousness, how many functions it performs by the function it performs. So here, the first group, Upekha Sahagata Santirana. So there are 2 investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity. These 2 consciousness, when they arise, they can perform Pratisandhi at the beginning of the rootless individual, the life of rootless individual, that one of these 2 consciousness arise and perform the function of Pratisandhi. And at the end, Stuti, so Bhavanga. So whenever the consciousness can perform the Pratisandhi, it includes the Bhavanga and Stuti too. So 3 functions, then Dhararamana, because they are the investigating. So 3 investigating consciousness can perform the function of Dhararamana. And also they can perform their original name, the Santirana. That is why the Upekha Sahagata Santirana, the 2 investigating consciousness accompanied by equanimity, they can perform the altogether 5 functions. So this is identifying the consciousness with the function, the number of functions. The second one, the great resultant age. So you may remember the great resultant age can perform the Pratisandhi Bhavanga Chuti, and also it is in Dhararamana. So altogether 4 functions. Then sublime resultant consciousness, it cannot perform the Dhararamana. So that is why the only 3 only 3 functions it can perform. So when they arise, any of them arise, they perform. So at the moment of, at the first moment of the Brahma existence, any of their sublime result and consciousness arise, that is performing the Pradisandhi. And at the last moment, Chuti and Bhavanga. Then Somanasa Sandirana. So among the 3 investigating consciousness, 2 is taken to taken in the group which perform 5 functions. So we don't need to count it. The remaining 1 accompanied by join that perform the 2 functions. The Santirana as it is original and the Dharamana. So 2 functions. That types of consciousness can perform the 2 functions when they arise. Then the 5th group is Vatavana Chitta. About the Vatavana Chitta, the mind dot averting consciousness, Manodhara Vajana, it performed in the 5 dot mental process as a Vatavana. So Vatavana, so it performed the Vatavana Kicha in the mind dot process, in the 5 dot process. But in the mind dot process, is performed only the Avajana Kicha before the Javana arise. So it also the consciousness that perform the 2 functions. Then the rest. So the remaining types of consciousness perform only 1 respective function. So they are what are the remaining? You need to know the 55 Javana, not included the former groups. So 55 Javana and Manodhatu Tika. So as mentioned, to be shortened, the expression or the Abhidhamma, the author of Abhidhamma Sangha make the condescent of the usage. So Manodhatu Tika and Javana, when he explained the number of consciousness that perform the only 1 function. So he showed the enumeration in that way. That's why sometimes we need to know the usage. Otherwise, we need to spread all the classification of consciousness again and again. So the usage are very useful to be shortened, the test. The Javana 55 does not need to mention a lot of types of wholesome or unwholesome in this way. All 55 Javana just perform the Javana function. Any of these consciousness can perform the other function except Javana function. So only Javana function. Then for the Manodhatu Tika, so and 3 triple mind elements. You may remember what are the 3 triple mind elements. So triple mind elements are 5 dot averting and 2 types of receiving consciousness. So here 5 dot averting just perform the function of adverting. So for the mind dot averting, it perform the function of Vatavana and Avajana too. But in case of 5 dot averting consciousness, it can perform only adverting function, averting function. That's why it included in the group that perform the only 1 function. Okay. Then the other 2 types of receiving consciousness, they also, when they arise, they can just perform the function of receiving, only receiving. They cannot perform any other function. Then Dripanja Vinyana, among the Dripanja Vinyana, eye consciousness can perform just 1 function of seeing. Ear consciousness can perform just 1 function of hearing. And nose consciousness can perform just 1 function of smelling. And tongue consciousness can perform just 1 function of tasting. And the last group, the body consciousness, whenever they arise, they can perform the only function of the touching. In this way, there are 68 consciousness. Those can perform only 1 function. But this is the information we need to know about the compendium of functions in the chapter 3, Pakinaka Sangaha. So this is the Kicha Sangaha. So today we finished the Keja Sangaha, and we have 2 more classes for the 3rd chapter. But the 3rd chapter is not quite easy to remember. You know, the classification come in this way. But not so much difficult if you understand the former 2 chapters of Chitta Sangaha and Chitta Sika Sangaha. And if you keep the information of these 2 chapters in your mind, and then you can continue. You can continue comfortably. So today's, I'm going to stop my explanation here, and then we can continue Q&A session.
Yes, Sādhu. A monk can say Abhidhamma with Buddha image if stay away from the Sangha monks? That's the first question. Second question is, what is the difference between Sankara and Karma? Third question, when we meditate, our Sankara appears? Sādhu, Sādhu, Sādhu.
For the first question, it is not related to the Abhidhamma. It's just about the Sangha, the activities of the monk's life. So, but anyhow, that is not difficult to say. So we will answer that. A monk cannot say Abhidhamma in front of the Buddha image if stay away from the Sangha. So that's because the confession, that is, we can say the confession Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is just the opening up of our mistakes in front of the other members of the Sangha community, to be honest. So, and also the other function is we give the promise. So I'm not committing this type of mistake again. That is why it is not related to the Buddha image. Just you know that. Also, we cannot say outside the Hatha Pasa, it is the specific distance. So the Abhidhamma is to perform in the specific area of the monks, other monks. So we cannot say the other members or other lay people or Samanera also, just to the monks. And within the specific area, specific distance. So now we can understand Abhidhamma is monk to monk. And also we cannot make the Abhidhamma from the telephone or from the online communication. We cannot do that. So we need to go to the monks, to the specific area to make that Abhidhamma. Then for the second question, it is not easy to bring the answer here in short time. So also we will study the Sankara and Karma in the 8th chapter of Pachaya Sangaha. So may I postpone the answer to that times. And so when we meditate, our Sankara appear. Actually, the Sankara is not appearing at the time of the meditation. So when we perform the Kaya by the body, that is called the Kaya Sankara. Or the mentality, the potential of the mentality arise. That is called, that can be condition of the life. That is called the Sankara. So the Kayas, what is the difference between the Kaya Sankara and Karma? Kaya Sankara and Kaya Karma, we will discuss in the 8th chapter in large. So here, when we meditate, so if you intentionally focusing on the mentalities, the aspect of the Sankara, what is the aspect of the Sankara, you can know at the time of the meditation. And otherwise, the Sankara is the function, the potency of the mentality, which can be condition of the life. That is why it is running, even though we are not meditating on that. That is the part of the Sankara, some information about the Sankara. So the other discussion will be on chapter 8. Okay.
Greetings, Bhante. As mentioned, Bhavanga will take place when there is no active cognitive process. That means Bhavanga will happen many times in our life. Will we be able to know the Bhavanga mind and its object since it happened always in our mind? Thank you, Bante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yes, that is right. Bhavanga is I think that will be the mostly happy times of our life is occupied by the Bhavanga, because between two process also Bhavanga, and then sleeping also Bhavanga. So we can say the Bhavanga is happening many times in our life. And the object of Bhavanga is the same as the object of the rebirth linking consciousness. So in the chapter 5 of the Vitimutta Sangaha, we will identify the objects of these three types of consciousness, Bhavanga and rebirth linking, Patisandi, Bhavanga, and Chuti. So we can, in order to know about the object of Bhavanga, and you need to meditate and then to catch up to the mentality. What is exactly your Bhavanga in this life, for this life? And then through the Bhavanga mind, and then you can check the object. But generally, it is said that Kamma nimitta or Gati nimitta is the object of the Bhavanga. So it is taken by the consciousness near that moment of past life, Before we were reborn in this life, we died in any life. Near that moment of that life, the process arises. That is called the Maranasana Viti. There, the Javana take the objects and also hand over. I like this. We can see that they hand it over to the next life's rebirth to take the object. Then the rebirth linking consciousness take that object when it arises, and also it's shared with the moment of Bhavanga and Chuti. So it is possible if you meditate up to the level of meditation where you can see and you can identify your consciousness of Bhavanga, rebirth linking. Then you can check the object. Okay.
So there's this questions from the chat group. One Dami Bante, our daily dreams happen in the form of Chitta Vritti or Bhavanga. May Bante explain the reason? Number 2, why do 8 sublime resultant Chittas cannot perform the function of registration? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay. Yes, for the first question, a daily dream. So when we dream, the object is about something, something to know. It's not the normal passive flow. It becomes the active flow, although sometimes we cannot remember when we wake up. And that comes into the active form, sometimes very weak. So we don't remember when we wake up. Then first of all, we need to know the Bhavanga, the object of Bhavanga is very formal in the life. It never changes. So there's Kamma nimitta or Gati nimitta. Any of these three can be according to the Patisandi consciousness take its object. So it always repeating whenever the Bhavanga arises. The only one of these three becomes the object. That is why at the moment of Bhavanga, we don't recognize after the awakening or at the time of the Bhavanga, except we are focusing by the meditative mind, our Bhavanga. At that moment, when we focus by the meditated mind to our bhavanga, then not at the same time, so previous bhavanga, then we check the object at that time. Only at that time we can know the object. But the other times, so including the time of dreaming, the object is not the same as the bhavanga's chitta's object. That's why during the dream, that is the chitta which is arising. But sometimes it is very, very smooth and very subtle. You cannot, your mind cannot catch, cannot grasp to be stable. So just gone like this. Sometimes it's just the shaking the bhavanga and then just moment. Sometime then that is called the mental cognitive process of the dreaming. So it's not easy to identify, just shaking sometimes. Then that is chitta vitti, we can say. In short, if we say that is chitta vitti, not bhavanga. Okay, then for second question, the sublime consciousness cannot perform the function of registration. This is not mentioned in the literature a lot, but as I mentioned in the slide, that is the nature of the nature of the dhararamana, the nature of the registration is related to the sense pure beings and sense pure consciousness. That is why after the sense pure jhana, or this eight, actually this not eight, 9 sublime resultant consciousness. 9 sublime resultant consciousness cannot arise in the sense pure beings mental process. It just arises in the mental process of the Brahma only. That is why the absence of the being, the condition of being is never be essential being. That is why they cannot perform the registration function. So here should be the 9 sublime resultant chitta. They cannot perform the function of registration. Okay.
One dummy Bante, why in the mind door process there's no receiving, investigating and determining process different with 5 door process? Thank you, Bante.
Yes. This is the difference, because it is different. Also, we can identify the 5 door and mind door process from 5 door. So we cannot show the reason. We cannot find out the reason because the literature does not mention. Just mention about the mind door processes in this way and the 5 door process in this way, and also this is the nature of consciousness, or we call it the chitta niyama. So according to the chitta niyama, they arise in the 5 door process. There, the function of receiving it needs. So to perform the function of receiving, the consciousness arise and then it perform that function. And there is no one to manage or no one to create this order, or no one to command to be in this order or to perform this function. They arise due to their nature, that is chitta niyama. So in case of the mind door process, I think the mental process can directly connect it to the the consciousness can directly experience the objects, because their mind door is mind. That is why I'm very close. No need so many steps to experience the objects. That is why in the mind door process, there's no need the function of receiving or investigating or determining. Just after the add button, the consciousness of the wholesome or unwholesome or the jhana. Jhana experience the taste of the object. So maybe because it's not need the function to arise. That is why they are not included. But I didn't aware of any explanation about them. Okay.
Greetings, Bante. Please explain the sequence of 5-door and mind-door everything consciousness. Do they happen simultaneously or one after another? Thank you, Bante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Actually, they are arising in the different doors. So in the different doors mean that in the different moments too. That is why they are arising in the different process. So we cannot say they are in the sequence, but for the whole life, we can say they are in the sequence. So at the time of the 5-door averting consciousness arise, the mind-door averting cannot arise. So when the object appear through the 5-door of the eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, at that moment, the averting consciousness, the consciousness perform that averting function is 5-door averting. Although it doesn't matter through the eye or ear, it include all 5 doors. That is why 5-door averting arise. And at the time, mind door cannot arise because the object is not coming through the mind door. But in the other times, the object come through the enter through the mind door. At that time, the averting function is performed by the mind door averting consciousness. That is why they are in the different process. So we can say in the sequence, but not directly the same in the same process, but different in the different process, but they never arise simultaneously.
May Bante lead us in making aspiration and sharing of merits, please.
Let's make aspiration and let's share our merit to all beings. Please repeat after me. Imina punya kamina.
Imina punya kamina.
Mami bala samagamo.
Mame bala samagamo.
Sadam samagamo hodu.
Gamo hotu.
Yawa nibbana patiyam.
Yawa nibbana patiya.
Idame punyam.
Idame punyang.
Asawakaya vahan hodu.
Asawakaya wahang hotu.
Idame punyam.
Idame punyang.
Nibbana sapajayo hodu.
Nibbana sapachayo hotu.
Mama punya bhagam.
Mama punya bagang.
Taba satanam bhajimi.
Sabha sattanang pajemi.
Isabe.
Te sape.
Me samam.
Me samang.
Punya bhagam labantu.
Punya bagang nabantu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much, Bante, and everyone for your time and participation. Till we meet again, may all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.